Welcome to a special NFL playoff edition of Next Man Up. Today, we will recap Super NFL Wildcard Weekend as well as preview the upcoming Divisional Round matchups. And of course, we will keep you updated on headlines surrounding our favorite teams. It's the Next Man Up Wildcard Recap Show, and it all starts now. All right, gentlemen, it may be colder than the Yukon outside, but after this past weekend, with all these crazy playoff games that we saw, we know we got some hotter seats for some of these coaches. Obviously, I think we could start going over how everyone did with their picks on the weekend, and obviously we're going to keep things going. It's going to sound really cocky and arrogant, but I came in first, 4-2. Nick and John tied at 3-3, and Chris, who unfortunately is stuck in a snow situation out in Nashville, went 2-4. So maybe he can use that downtime to research spreads and picks for the upcoming weeks. How do you guys feel about the picks, and did you guys enjoy the weekend?
Great wildcard weekends. It's one of my favorite weekends in all of sports. And I feel like it was kind of a blessing having the Buffalo game be delayed until Monday. So we got a double dose of games every day, Saturday,
Right.
Sunday, and Monday, with, the majority of the country off. It was just really enjoyable to, be in here, being in the Midwest. It's been snowed in. It's been -15 out almost every day with the wind chill. So nothing better than cozying up and watching, a double dose of football on Monday. So that was great. Nikki, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree too. It's a great weekend of a lot of action. I was surprised at the blowouts for the games this
Oh,
weekend
yeah.
too. You thought with at least the majority of these games, they're going to be more tightly contested. With obviously the Lions Rams game being the tightest contested of all of them, but
Right.
very enjoyable. There were some big surprises for sure in this weekend. Two teams that I was really shocked at were both Texas teams, where one being as successful as they were in Houston versus Dallas, where a lot of people thought they were going
Right.
to be the ones to come out of this. But not only was the surprise that they lost, but how much they lost by it. I think that was probably the biggest shock out of this entire wild card weekend.
No doubt. I mean, I think everybody was shocked by that one. And you know what? We'll start there. We'll start with the Cowboys Packers game, because what I want to do is I kind of want to go through the games, recap them quickly, talk about everybody's feelings and all the shock. And then of course we can kind of talk about what's going on with the coaching carousel. A lot of new stuff. Obviously, Nikki, we see your background there. Bill officially parting ways with the Patriots. So those rumors are hot. And then, of course, we'll get into that with our core four segment where we talk about our favorite teams. But to start, you just hit the nail on the head, Nikki. Cowboys, Packers. I got to listen. I felt strongly when I picked against the Eagles that they would lose, not just because I'm a Giants fan, but because of what I had recently seen with the Eagles. I never considered that the Cowboys would get blown out at home when they haven't lost a home game in 2 years. And when we saw Tommy DeVito beat this same Packers team on Monday Night Football. So I was, I saw 14-0, and I was like, okay, Dallas, because if Dallas was moving the ball, no problem. They were getting into field goal range like that. Things were just going wrong. Obviously, they eventually had the pick six. But then you blink and they're in a 3-score hole. And I just personally, I want to talk about the defense, because even though, everyone's going to talk about Dak and the offense and the issues there, Johnny, it looked to me like after Dan Quinn's ferocious defense that everybody feared throughout this season, they decided, after everybody expected them to, be blitzing, attacking, man coverage, we saw none of that. We saw a lot of soft zone coverage, average 5-yard separation for receivers. So no discredit to Jordan Love, but I think the Cowboys just laid an egg, and a lot of people would probably torch them that day. What were your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I really don't know if this game's more indicative of Green Bay, their coaching, and Jordan Love, officially making his statement like I'm here, like look at me now. Or is this more indicative of the Cowboys just laying an egg like they usually do in that first round of the playoffs? This is really a head scratcher. I feel like after it was 14-0, Dallas, their whole team, the whole roster, you could just see their body language. They were like
Right.
completely shell shocked. They didn't know what to do or how to carry themselves back into competing in this game. And it was too little too late, honestly. It was just such a bizarre game. And as a Chicagoan, I mean, like this was like literally our worst nightmare watching
Right.
Jordan Love just tear apart the Cowboys. I'm very interested to see how he's going to perform out on the West Coast in a really, really hostile environment in San Francisco. I'm not going to lie. I hate Green Bay with every ounce of my being, just as much as you hate the Eagles, Anthony. Maybe just a little bit more, just because, my team
Wow.
hasn't beat Green Bay, that dreaded team to the north in 5 seasons now.
Right.
But I'm really interested to see how they're going to play in San Francisco this upcoming week. Can they keep it close? I mean, they're 9-point underdogs right now. Last time I checked, is Green
Yeah.
Bay. I really feel like Green Bay has caught their stride at the perfect time, and the Cowboys were very lackadaisical. We have home field advantage. We have this great defense that we've been riding all year, and just goes to show that any team can win on any given Sunday, any given day. And we certainly saw that this weekend when Green Bay took care of Dallas.
Absolutely. And you're right. Packers at 49ers. 49ers are favored by 9.5. But I also want to talk a little bit about the future of Dak Prescott and Mike McCarthy. Nikki, this was a fairly recent marriage. Mike McCarthy's been there a few years, but obviously, you mentioned Green Bay. Going back to Green Bay, McCarthy sort of has the reputation of playoff mess ups, screw ups, not going as far as the team really should. With an owner like Jerry Jones, what do you think is going to happen with Dak and McCarthy?
I mean, I think that Jerry still sees Dak as his shiny new toy, or not new, but still as
His
his, or
guy.
more as his prized possession. But I mean, there's definitely a little more, I guess, smudging on that luster that Dak has. Not to take away from him, he's a great quarterback, I think. But maybe this does start Jerry looking for that next guy maybe in the draft this year, or maybe a few seasons from now. He may start to think of he might want to move on. As far as McCarthy goes too, with a lot of regular season success that he has, and yes, he's had his blunders in the playoffs throughout his career. He's not that bad of a head coach too,
No,
but
he's a good head coach.
especially with how this year, I wouldn't be surprised if we see that McCarthy is let go from the Cowboys and he and Jerry look somewhere else again. But it's not just McCarthy too. In the end, it's got to be there's got to be some sort of missing piece on that staff or on that roster that's preventing Dallas from getting over that hump. I mean, they haven't had a playoff. I don't think a home playoff win in, I think it's what, 8 appearances now.
I
I
think
think
they
I saw
have one. They like in the last 27 years, they have like
something like
one.
that.
They have one or something
But
along those lines.
it's still, I mean, they'll still hype themselves up as with the whole America's team moniker, and definitely definitely a good team still. But Green Bay took away all of their offensive weapons. They torched the defense too. And with speaking on Jordan Love's performance too, I want to do this, and maybe we can connect this into the Houston game too.
Sure.
If you look at the performances between Jordan Love and CJ Stroud, it was the same exact stats for them except for passing yards. They both completed 16 of 21 passes, both had 3 touchdowns to no picks, had a passer rating of 157.2, and Jordan Love had 272 passing yards. Stroud had 2 more passing yards than Jordan Love. And this was in their starting playoff debuts. So and
Right.
that goes back to the anything can happen in the playoffs. And that's not just football, that's any sport, a lesser seeded team could come in and have a dominating performance over a better seeded team. I like to point out, we saw that in the wild card this year for baseball, and even in the NHL playoffs last year too, especially in the first round. You could see a lot of big surprises in any sport across the world
Of course.
when it comes to the playoffs.
Of course. That's why you say you just need a ticket to the dance. I mean, real quick, I think McCarthy's gone. I think Dan Quinn is probably the largest to blame for the Dallas debacle. Maybe he was too busy interviewing for coaching positions that he forgot what worked for him the last 17 weeks. I mean, in fairness, the Cowboys destroyed the Giants this year, 82-17 in 2 games with the defense that I saw, and they just didn't do it. Didn't do the same defense this week. So I don't get it, but absolutely fantastic points on the young quarterbacks having success in Love and Stroud. It's great to see that Stroud got healthy. He was a little banged up towards the end of the season. I was concerned that he wasn't really going to be 100%, but holy smokes, 157 quarterback ratings. I don't want to say I told you so, but in regards to the Texans-Browns game, Joe Flacco, he kind of stole our hearts a little bit, but the guy had a QBR of like 48, 45 because he was just throwing interceptions like crazy. So what did we see in the playoff game? Throwing interceptions like crazy. I think the Browns defense obviously got embarrassed, but I think more importantly, Stroud played a nearly perfect game and looked like a veteran on what we would normally not expect that from a young player. What were your thoughts on the game, Johnny?
Anthony, you certainly called it last week on the show that the Joe Flacco Cinderella story was going to come to an end, and boy, did it. There's just something about this Houston team when Stroud is starting at home. They have a little bit of zip and electricity when Stroud suits up for Houston. And credit to DeMeco Ryans, rookie head coach, who again I chose to fade as a rookie head coach in his first ever playoff game. I went with Stefanski and a proven defense, and just goes to show again, like I said, anyone can win on any given day. And credit to Houston, they just did not let their foot off the gas. And similar to Dallas, I thought, similar to the Cowboys, I thought Cleveland just was a little bit shell shocked. After a couple costly turnovers. And the Browns have worked their way through turnovers in the last couple of weeks, but they weren't able to get past this one. And Houston just ran away with it and just didn't
Absolutely.
look back. I'm really interested in the upcoming matchup with Houston and the Ravens, and I'm sure we're going to preview that in just a second. But yeah, I mean, you called it. You called it, Anthony. The Joe Flacco story just really kind of came to a crashing halt, and credit to him and credit to the Browns for persevering through a lot of
Right.
injuries.
Right.
But I think they just ran into a really young, energetic, nothing to lose team in Houston, and I really think Houston's going to give Baltimore a run for their money this upcoming week.
I am with you there. I mean, Stefanski is still my coach of the year because, when you're going down to your third, fourth string quarterback, tons of injuries up front to make the playoffs and still, hang strong, still play strong in a very tough division. Absolutely
No one
no,
gave them a chance when Chubb went down.
no.
Nobody gave them a chance.
No. So they deserve a lot of credit. But obviously, you only score 14 points in a playoff game. You're not going to win. And it doesn't help that you gave up 45. If you had told me the Cowboys would score 32 points in the game, I'd be like, oh, they won 32-7, right? 32-14, right? Never in a million years would have guessed that they gave up 48 points and got torched like that. But we have a couple of games to get through. Obviously, Chiefs, Dolphins. I think my theory on the Eagles was similar to the Dolphins, just looking at their December. Obviously the Dolphins had a lot of injuries. I think Mike McDaniel's a fantastic coach, but if there's anything he can learn, it's to not play his stars in garbage time. A lot of those injuries did not need to occur, especially Chubb and Phillips on the defensive line, which they absolutely needed for playoff success, especially after they lost home field. But the Chiefs, the Swifties, they've been there before. The cold doesn't bother them. Andy Reid looked like he didn't even care about the icicles in his mustache. Very successful game for the Chiefs. And Nikki, do you think the Chiefs can build on this? Do you think they'll go back to that playoff success we've seen in the past? Obviously, they no longer have home field.
Yeah, I mean, when a game hits -33 for a max and you're a warm weather team going into that environment, it's going to be really tough for you. And it definitely affected Miami. What was good for Kansas City, excuse me, is that Mahomes didn't shy away from the passing game too, which in that cold of a game, you're going to think it's going to go to more of a ground game for both teams. But Chiefs looked great. They were very comfortable, even in that frigid environment there. As far as going to the next round, going to Buffalo, these two teams have been married to each other for the past couple of seasons now, especially when it comes to the playoffs. So I expect that it's going to be a really fun game to watch between both teams. We saw with Buffalo, Josh Allen led them to victory again. And I think this could be the year that they get over that Kansas City hump, so to speak. But it's not so much like, compare it to where the Patriots and Colts for so long, when Brady and Manning were on those
Mm-hmm.
teams, they were seemingly married to each other in the playoffs. The difference was the Patriots won the most of those matchups. But in this one between the Bills and the Chiefs, it's been a very evenly
Right.
matched series throughout the past couple of years. So I think no matter what, it's going to be a hard fought victory for either team. And that's going to go down as another classic game in that rivalry.
Love that. And yeah, obviously we'll have our picks later in the show. We'll keep the competition going. But I love that analogy because those historic Colts and Patriots games were great because it was the two best quarterbacks in the league, Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. And guess what? With Kansas City and Buffalo, it's the two greatest quarterbacks in the league, and Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. So personally, I feel Josh Allen had the best season, best quarterback in the NFL right now. Had an awesome little fake slide. I mean, I don't know what you think of this. It kind of looked like a fake slide against the Steelers, and then it resulted in a 52-yard run. But anybody would breakaway speed like that and then a cannon like that. And doesn't matter that there's 18 feet of snow outside. That fan base is going to bring it. I think it's awesome that Buffalo has the home field. Like Pittsburgh defeating Buffalo would be equal to the level of shock that we saw Green Bay over Dallas because it would have been a 7-2. And there's only been 7 seeds in the playoffs for a couple of years. So it was unprecedented territory in the Dallas game. But the Steelers, obviously, down to their third string quarterback. A lot of drama there with Tomlin walking out on his press conference and whether or not he's going to take a year off next year. But again, I think even with a third, you're down to your third string quarterback and Mason Rudolph, there's some honor there. The Steelers definitely had a successful season, but fell short in the big game to the Bills 31-17. Now, 2 more games to get to before we start doing predictions. We'll do one more blowout and then we'll end with the best game because I got a hot take on the best game that I'm not sure everyone's going to like. But regarding Buccaneers Eagles, 32-9, you saw an Eagles fan dumping popcorn on Nick Sirianni. No surprise,
Trash fan
that
base.
sort of fan
Trash
base.
fan base.
I know, but did anybody see it? Listen, we all poked fun about it, and I thought the Bucs defense with Todd Bowles would give Jalen Hurts a hard time. I did not anticipate a 32-9 blowout, especially when it was like 16-9. They're kind of in the game that Hurts hit a nice bomb to Devontae Smith, got inside the 5. That definitely prompted something that I thought would be a larger comeback. But then I think it all went to hell when the tush push was stopped for the first time. And I think that was the absolute turning point. Johnny, what were your thoughts on the tush push being stopped? And did you think that was the absolute turning point?
Well, I wish every team had a big old Vita Vea to clog up the middle. Very hard to move that man, even if you're Jason Kelsey. So credit to the Buccaneers for stopping that tush push. There's something wrong in that Eagles locker room. I'm not quite sure if it's the coaching. Is it the players that have just kind of given up on this season now that they've lost so many in a row? They've really struggled on the road
What happened with
lately.
AJ Brown? You seen at a fight in Atlantic City or something, right?
Yeah, I don't know. And are we really sure we actually know the full extent of his knee injury? Something weird is going on with the Eagles.
Yeah.
I really can't quite put my finger on it. I'm okay with them not advancing. They've had quite a lot of success over the last couple of
Right.
years. And honestly, shame on the Philadelphia fans that are just, you know, like going for the throat, going through the jugular for Nick Sirianni. I understand you might want him out the door, but that man brought you a Super Bowl and took you to another one last year, and you're already trying to cutthroat him
I know.
and try. And I'm not a big Sirianni guy myself. Like, I think he has a really punchable face personally. He's just like really smug. He's perfect for Philadelphia and that brand and that image. And I get it. And we could be here all day talking bad about Philly. But what I will say is, like, Philadelphia fans, like, I don't know if they could endure what Chris and I have to endure being Jets and Bears fans. Like, do they really understand like what losing actually feels like? Yes, they had a really rough stretch to the end of the season, but to jump to all these conclusions after all the success that you've recently had, I think it really has it really comes down to their offensive coordinator and their defense coordinator this year.
Right.
Clearly, this wasn't the same Philly team with that swagger that we saw to start the season, that we saw all year last year. That swagger, that Philadelphia, that mantra that they've been carrying
Right.
for the last couple of years, it just like wasn't there. It certainly wasn't there in this game. And I don't know about you guys, but as soon as I saw Ric Flair pop up on my TV rooting for the Buccaneers, I knew it was over. I knew
It
it was
was
over.
over for Ric
20
Flair.
on the Buccaneers money line right then and there. I just knew it was
Nature Boy shows up, and that's it.
Love that. Love that. Obviously,
And
go ahead, Nikki. Go ahead. We're going to go
yeah,
right
I
to
want to
you.
piggyback on the game too. Like that was, I mean, willing to admit that that was the biggest shock out of everything this weekend for sure. I think at least,
yeah,
aside from the Cowboys getting blown out, but yeah, that Johnny, you said it perfectly. That swagger being gone, that is definitely what affected that team. And I think it goes back to when they were 10-1 on the season. I think maybe that was the point where they're like, we've got this in the bag. And then all of a sudden they have that 1-5 skid for the rest of the year. They lost that because I think they got in their heads. They got in their own heads too much. They believe their own hype. And it just shows that in something like that can really affect a team. And I mean, Devontae Smith, yeah, having a good game, even though he came in a little roughed up, but it just, when the rest of the effort isn't there from the full team, it really shows.
The
And
tackling was terrible, and we have to give Baker Mayfield some credit, right?
yeah.
Oh yeah,
Talk about that for a little, Nikki. How did you feel about
Mayfield's a
Baker's
good
performance?
quarterback. He's had, I saw they showed a stat in that game where he's gone through now 8 coaches in his career since he's started in the NFL, and the majority of those were with the Browns. But Baker's been a good quarterback since he's come into this league, and he's shown that he can lead a team. I mean, you saw one of his years with Cleveland. They made it to the AFC Championship and almost made it to the Super Bowl, got knocked out by the Chiefs. But he can do a good job with it, and I think
Right.
Tampa's got to stick with him. I think if they could keep that same formula there with him, I think he could do some good stuff for them for a couple years to come.
He's going to be a
Baker
free agent.
Mayfield.
He's on a 1-year deal, so I'm curious to
Yeah.
see what happens next to him. But what
I
were
mean,
you say about
if
Baker,
I'm
Johnny?
Did you guys see the image of Baker Mayfield running the scout team D-line in practice for the Panthers last year when he was
How
on
do
the
the
team? Like,
Panthers feel right now?
what is Carolina doing?
What are they doing?
Carolina gives me hope that my organization, my franchise, isn't as much of a complete dumpster fire as
I actually believe like they're all kicking themselves for not picking Stroud. I actually believe had they picked Stroud that they would have ruined
100%.
Stroud, and that
100%.
Young would probably
I
do
feel
just as
awful
well in
for
Houston.
yeah.
I feel awful for Panthers fans, especially watching that Houston Cleveland game this weekend. Oh my God. Oh, I can't
I
imagine.
thought Todd Bowles had a great game plan. A lot of that. I mean, he had the game plan that I thought Dan Quinn was going to have with those blitz zero looks coming after you. I mean, if there's anything you should do to try and stop Jalen Hurts is put a man in his face and dare him to be accurate. Because when you give him space and allow him to be athletic, he'll play like he did in the Super Bowl, especially when he has both wide receivers. But he did not have A.J. Brown in this game. He was roughed up, rough December. Sirianni felt the wheels coming off, and they did not respond very well to the pressure. When you get shut out by the Giants, who aren't playing for anything and a half, when you were playing for something, that's definitely not a good sign. Now, the one game, though, that actually felt like a playoff game was the Lions-Rams game. Obviously, Matt Stafford, former Lion, going to Detroit in a big hostile environment.
He got booed.
You know what? I want to talk about that. The Lions are obviously able to prevail 24-23, and I know this doesn't reflect all Detroit fans, but as I'm trying to put it in New York terms, if the Knicks were playing the Raptors and RJ Barrett was introduced, I would not boo him. He got traded. Like, he didn't do anything wrong. And Matthew Stafford has accomplished way more for the Lions than RJ Barrett did for the Knicks. So I understand it's a hostile environment. I understand you're trying to be intimidating, but Stafford is a genuinely good human. He was, in my opinion, roughed up, targeted, bounty, whatever you want to call it. I get this. You can call it Dan Campbell being tough. I thought it was uncalled for a lot of those hits that were well after the play. You know, we saw him maybe possibly have a concussion on that hit, but he also got stepped on his rotator cuff, messed up his hand. His eyes went back into his skull, and he stayed in the game. So whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. But, I mean, Stafford showed some toughness, and I felt that as a Detroit fan, you should be appreciative and happy. And the Rams nearly stole this game. Obviously they settled for a field goal when it was 24-20, and I kind of had a bad feeling at that moment. But I don't know. I'm turned off by Dan Campbell and his aggressive calls and all that. That was just me.
I think you might be looking too much into that. I think generally, for the most part, all of Detroit is very thankful for the service and the time that Matt Stafford had when
Right.
he was there, when he was present during his time with the Lions. But once it became game time, a city and a culture and a town that has been literally salivating, waiting for this moment for their first playoff win since 1991. As soon as the clock started, Matt Stafford and that whole team, I mean, that was the enemy. So I have no like bad feelings towards Detroit in terms of like, did they get after Stafford? I mean, what were they supposed to do? Like play patty cake with them? Like he's
No,
the
no, 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 no. I
the
just thought it was.
outscored.
I'm not okay. Obviously, don't play patty cake, but I'm
Yeah, I
saying
just
it was a little excessive, and I felt not just on Stafford, on several hits, it was like he's going down. Let's get a second guy, third guy in there, shot, and it reminded me of the Saints bounty team. It felt a bit excessive. Nikki, how did you feel about that?
I mean, it's. I think you also got to chalk that up too when it comes playoff time. The intensity gets turned up on both sides of the ball, and not obviously not excusing whether or not those extra hits were intentional. You don't want that to happen, but it's. I think it's just that extra aggression that Detroit had turning it on, especially with like Johnny said, it's been such a long time. It's been 32 years, almost 33 years since they've
Yeah,
had a
my
playoff
life.
win, and just giving that to the city of Detroit. I mean, you saw at the end of the game when the clock wound down, there were Lions fans weeping openly in the stands because they
Right.
finally saw a playoff win for the team in general. I mean, and that stuff aside, though, it was a hard fought game between both teams. I think
Great
a
game.
game that if you want to see a close playoff game in the NFL, this was definitely that kind of game to watch. It was hard hitting from both teams. The action was great. The defenses looked great on both sides, and everyone played. It really came down to those final seconds of the game, and good for Detroit, I say, for coming out on top of this, giving the fans something to be happy about. And now they've got another home game this weekend where they're hosting Tampa Bay, and it's going to be a really another good one for them, I think.
I'm looking forward to that one, especially because Tampa's gotten a little bit of swagger, gotten hot. I think it could be a good football game. Yeah, obviously, like I don't hate Lions fans or anything. I don't hate Dan Campbell, ex-Giant, but I do think the certain desperation, like that maybe they were just so desperate, 31, 32 years out of playoff game, that things got a bit excessive. And I don't know. I didn't like it. I thought that the Rams, had legitimate beef, especially for some of the targets on Stafford. But we're gonna do a game called Rapid Fire. And we're just gonna go down the list for the matchups upcoming this week. We're gonna do our picks. Chris has submitted his picks, so I will provide them at the end of this rapid fire segment. But let's go down the line super fast. Johnny, Texans at Ravens. Now, obviously, we mentioned the spreads. Baltimore's 9.5, but we're just picking winners here. We're just picking winners. So Texans at Ravens. Who do you got?
Texans upset of the week.
Woo! I like it. Nikki?
I'm going to go with the Ravens on this one.
I'm got to go Texans just because I'm falling in love with CJ Stroud and just because I heard that the Ravens went on a boat ride with Odell Beckham Jr. I know that doesn't end well. All right, Nikki,
That's
back
not
at you.
good when Odell gets a vote for
No,
your team in the playoffs. It's
no,
not.
no, do not go on that boat. It's a bad
Really
idea.
quick note regarding that Ravens Texans game.
Mhm.
Lamar Jackson is 1-8 against the spread over his last 3 seasons as a favorite of a touchdown or more. Just
I mean,
one.
9.5 is really high. I don't know if I could see the Ravens winning and not necessarily covering that for sure.
I have this weird feeling the Ravens are going to lay a dud and no one's going to be ready for it. Just going to throw that out there.
If it's consistent with how the NFL has been. Now, speaking of hot teams, Packers at 49ers. 49ers also favored by 9.5. This one, I'll just flat out say I got the 49ers. I think it's a little too much for the Packers. What do you think, Nikki?
Yeah, I think same thing. 49ers are going to dominate in that game.
Same to you,
I
Johnny?
don't know if, I don't know if 49ers are necessarily going to dominate, but 49ers do have Green Bay's number, especially in the postseason. I'm going to take the 49ers in the Bay Area. Home team takes care of this one.
Yeah, I think they'll control the game by a couple scores, perhaps. All right, now this is the interesting one. Bucks at Lions. Lions obviously just coming off their first playoff win in a long time. Bucks still staying hot in the playoffs. Todd Bowles Detroit is favored in this one by 6.5. And if you heard the hilarious interview, they are home, but it is not outside. In case anybody heard that clip where somebody asked
The
Dan
weather might
Campbell
be
how they're going to
a
battle the weather, or asked Todd Bowles how they're going to battle the weather. But I'm gonna stick with the upsets. I'm going Bucks here. Nikki, what do you got?
I got Lions on this one again. I think they're going to ride that momentum into the playoffs. I'm liking this little Cinderella story for the Lions here.
Love it,
I
love
like
it.
the Lions. I like the Lions at home. Jared Goff is a different quarterback inside that dome, indoors. He's one of the best covering quarterbacks in the league, most profitable quarterbacks over the
He's
last couple
impressed me.
seasons
He's impressed me.
indoors. Give me the Lions.
And our match made in heaven. It's like two old sweethearts meeting up again. The Chiefs at the Bills. This one is the closest spread of the week. Buffalo's favored by 2.5. Obviously, I'm writing out the fact that I had predicted Bills Rams for a Super Bowl, so maybe that's why I'm so offended that the Rams lost in such dramatic fashion. But I'm going with the Bills. Johnny, what do you got?
My heart so bad wants to take the Bills as a Bears fan, understanding what fan bases like just scream and thrive for. I feel for Buffalo fans. I want them to get over the hump. Patrick Mahomes is a beast and an animal in the playoffs. This is his first road playoff game ever. I don't know if you guys know that. That is insane to think about. He is
That's crazy. Never.
8-1-1 against the spread as an underdog. I hate that the Chiefs are an underdog in this spot. This is where they are most dangerous. I'm going to take the Chiefs.
Nikki?
I am gonna go with Buffalo on this one here, and this is gonna be. I think it'll be like the Lions Rams game. It's gonna come down to 1 point in the end.
Love it. I mean, this is going to be high drama, right? I mean, if
I
Tony
want
if
Buffalo
Tony
to
didn't
win.
line up off sides last time, this would be in Kansas City, right? Is that I read that somewhere.
Also, I could totally see this game being like so poetic. This game going to overtime, and Buffalo obviously making that statement towards the NFL officiating, like, hey, we want a chance to have the ball as well in overtime as well as the Chiefs, and I can see the Chiefs like totally taking advantage of that situation and actually
Ah,
beating the
mm-hmm.
game, something like that. Again, my
Mhm.
heart wants Buffalo to win. I hope they
Right.
win, but all it tells me otherwise. So.
I'm going to be watching Tony at that line of scrimmage. Just see if he learned anything. See if he talks to those refs at least a little bit. Now, we have our picks from the Abominable Snowman, who is stuck in Nashville. I guess that honky tonk feeling got him stuck there in a pile of snow. I don't know what to say, but Chris has mailed in his picks. He's got the Niners, the Ravens, the Bills, and the Lions. So looks to me like he's picking all the favorites, and there's nothing
Double
sexy
chalk,
about it
baby.
all. I guess that's what happens when you're 2-4 and you're picking scared, and you're going into the week thinking I got to get back up in the standings. But all right, so I was thinking we could do some NFL honor stuff, but you know what? We have time. There's no need to do that right now. We can save that for an upcoming show. But I want to make sure we have a core 4 segment where we go. Well, it's more like a core 3 segment this week. It doesn't have the same ring to it. Maybe obviously there's really not a ton going on with the Jets right now. Anyway, we know they're bringing basically everybody back and praying that Rodgers saves all of them forever. What could go wrong there? Nothing. But yeah, why don't we do that? We'll go to our teams and we'll break things down and talk about current headlines. It's been a long time since we saw a future guaranteed Hall of Fame head coach on tour. I think the most recent one I could think of is when Andy Reid left the Eagles, and they obviously very quickly went to the Kansas City Chiefs. And I'm pretty sure the most hilarious meme out of all of that was Andy Reid saying, "I thought this said KFC" when he was wearing the KC hat. But obviously, Bill, a lot of rumors and a lot of emotion there for New England faithful. So we'll start with the Patriots segment. Nikki, what's going on with the Pats? Have you heard anything about Belichick, and where do you think the Patriots are going forward?
Well, I mean, right here first, the background here. I mean,
Uh-huh.
it's very
It's
I think
okay,
it's
I
bitter.
guess.
Yeah, it's bittersweet. I think for me personally, that Bill's gone. Um, it was the right time though for him to step away, and it was a mutual parting from both him and the organization. Both Kraft had nothing but good things to say about him in that press conference. Bill the same about the organization and the fans. Definitely will be in the Hall of Fame one day for sure. What I think is funny is that the Falcons just announced that they just interviewed Bill. And then a bunch of memes have come out of that relating to that Super Bowl. Someone retweeted the tweet that it was 28-9 and the Falcons had 15 minutes left. And one of the things was, I still can't believe this tweet hasn't been taken down. But that aside, and apparently there's been mutual interest between Bill
Yeah.
and Atlanta. So we'll see what happens there. I know San Diego was the big one at first. It's going to be really weird to see the Patriots with Bill not patrolling the sidelines for the first time in 24 years, but they just introduced Gerard Mayo today at his press conference, and I'm staying optimistic with Gerard. Him being now the 15th head coach in franchise history. Also for himself, he's the first black head coach in Patriots history, which is a big honor for him.
Right.
And I'm excited to see what he can do. He's talked about in his press conference, I got to watch a little before we recorded it. He talked about a lot of continuing that culture within the organization, not just a culture around winning or losing, but what it means to have that culture start from the top and trickle all the way down through the organization, and how he's going to affect and how much he cares about developing players and coaches under him. There's already been the rumors on, is he going to keep Bill O'Brien? Is he going to let him go? Who's he going to bring in for other members of his staff? Are both Steve and Brian Belichick going to stay on staff with him? I think a good move for Mayo would be to keep as many veteran heads on the staff as he can, while also bringing in his own guys. I know he said that he would love to bring in former linebacker Dante Hightower as a linebackers coach. He'd think he'd be a great one for that. I would like that too. And just to see how he'll do with the team and how this moves forward. Kraft also said that as far as the general manager goes, right now they would love to see what they can find to hire from within, but he's also opening to going to an outside hire for that general manager position. Whether they have that for before the draft or if they get that after the draft remains to be seen. He also has a philosophy around drafting of he wants this to be a collaborative effort for everyone in the organization to see who they get for those best players. I mean,
Right.
it's going to be different here in the end. And ultimately, thank you to Bill for everything that he's brought to this organization over 24 years, and best of luck to him and wherever his future takes him.
No doubt. I mean, I think he would go to an NFC team. Obviously, it's a little less awkward playing the Patriots if he goes to an NFC team. Like the Falcons, I mean, I think he would be salivating at an opportunity like that, especially if he could just bring in his quarterback or find a quarterback that he would like to fill there, because don't they have everything else? I mean, they got a great tight end, Kyle Pitts. They got a great running back in Bijan Robinson. They got a reasonable offensive line. They got a strong defense. It's a weak division. I could totally see Bill going there. But listen, as somebody who watched Coughlin for a long time, I mean, obviously not the same, but Coughlin was a coach for the Giants for a long time and was, obviously regarded as a future Hall of Famer when they parted ways. Tread lightly. That's all I'll tell you. Because we had a head coach 2 years gone, head coach 2 years gone, head coach 2 years gone. Dayball's the first one to survive 2 years since Tom Coughlin. So best of luck to the Patriots. One question though, what did you think? Because you mentioned to us that this was sort of a contract thing. What did you think of Mayo being hired before they hired a new GM?
I think that's fine. I think that between GM and head coach, I think head coach was the more important decision that they wanted to make before
Was it like
general
Bill's
manager.
dying wish? Like, give him the keys. and was it that or what?
I know that from what it sounded like is that Bill had a lot of confidence in Gerard and liked what he saw from him as he developed as a coach and his staff for the past couple of years. And I know last year when he got his extension that was built into the contract as a little succession plan. I think the thought was probably after this next season, when Bill still had a year left, that they'd probably go ahead with that. But obviously, with how this season played out, it accelerated things. And I think in the end, it came down to, this is probably it's probably what they thought was the best move for the team going into the future and seeing what this new generation will bring.
Love it. Thank you, Nikki. Now, Johnny, obviously the Bears talk for the future has been at an all-time high probably since Halloween, because going into it that you have that number one pick, looking more and more like Eberflus. Want to get that right? Eberflus is coming back. Weird. Listen, weird name. Eberflus. I feel like if that's your name, you just deal with it. If somebody says the wrong one, it's like Tyrod versus Tyrod Taylor, right? But what are your thoughts on the Bears, and how do you feel about things right now?
Again, guys, outside of the playoffs and the Super Bowl, this is going to be the biggest NFL story heading in to the NFL draft. What are the Bears to do with that number one pick? As you can see my background, are they going to roll it with Justin Fields, or are they going to take the once in a lifetime generational prospect that everyone has been claiming Caleb Williams is? And there's been a lot of rumors and negative speculation that Caleb Williams would want part ownership of a team. He wouldn't play in Chicago. And all of that has just turned into bullshit because he has officially declared for the NFL draft. Many thought he wouldn't because he didn't want to get drafted by the Bears at number one. And it's been known and it was quoted that he is open to playing for anybody and he's excited for whoever selects him. So I think we can get that narrative out of the way that he wouldn't come and play in Chicago. I will say this. It's really, really hard being a Bears fan right now because I think at the end of the day, all we want is our team to win. Whether that's rolling it back with Justin, who the city is enamored with. We love Justin Fields. But at the same time, we have this unique moment in time where we can chase greatness. And this kid seems like he has all the tools necessary to take us to that next level that Bears fans have never seen before in a quarterback. We're the only franchise in the whole league that has never had 4,000-yard passer in a single season. Just like crazy stats like that. I love Justin Fields, and I will root for him if he's on another team. I hope he succeeds and has a very successful career. I just don't see a scenario where he stays with this team where things are at, where the salary cap is at. You reset the rookie clock. You take Caleb Williams at number one. And rolling it back with Eberflus, I think there's more pressure on the Bears to get it right. And there's more pressure for Eberflus and general manager Ryan Poles if they run it back with Justin Fields, because this will be like a 1-year prove it deal. And then how do you bring in an offensive coordinator with a lame duck head coach for 1 year on a prove it deal? It's like this either is going to work or it's not.
Right.
Justin Fields now is going to have to learn his third offense in 4 years.
Not
like
good.
There's just so much more. It's just ridiculous. Like you're setting the kid up to fail, and the Bears have already failed him. That's the worst part. And that's my biggest fear is if they do draft Caleb Williams, are they going to fail him like they failed so many others in the past?
Right.
I just think that the safety of Eberflus and the safety of Ryan Poles they'll be safe no matter what happens if they pick Williams. If they go the rookie route, they have to get the offensive coordinator right. Bottom line, whoever they decide to run it back with, if they run it with Fields or they run it with Caleb Williams, they have to get the offensive coordinator right. They've interviewed several names so far. They've named Shane Waldron, the former offensive coordinator of the Seahawks. They just interviewed Greg Roman the other day, who worked with Jim Harbaugh in San Francisco. You recently saw him in Baltimore working with Lamar Jackson. If they hire Greg Roman, I mean, certainly seems like they're going to run it back with Fields. That the two go very hand in hand with
Absolutely.
the Greg Roman. Again, boys, I mean, we're going to be talking about this for the next 90, 100 days leading up into the NFL draft. This is such a unique moment for the NFL draft. And I'm not just saying that as a Chicagoan. I mean, this storyline is crazy because the Bears find themselves in such a unique spot. And I've been saying this for weeks, and I'm going to say it again. I'm going to keep pounding the table. They have to get this right. They have to get this right. This is the biggest moment in Chicago Bears franchise history. And this moment will dictate the next decade of where this franchise is going to go. And
Rex Grossman would beg to differ with that, but just saying.
You know what's wild is Aaron Rodgers, Chris Lizio's boy. He has the same amount of NFC championship trophies as Rex Grossman does.
Love that. I love Rex.
Sexy Rexy.
Johnny, I want to ask you too for the OCs. Do you think that, I mean, obviously with head coach too, there was the rumors with possibly Harbaugh going in, but what do you think of Harbaugh's, I guess, right-hand man, Sharon Moore, the offensive coordinator from Michigan? Do you think that the Bears could give him a look, considering what he's done with that offense there and
Yeah.
that whole team?
Yeah, certainly. I'd be open to whatever. I really think the Bears need to exhaust a full search, talk to as many names as possible, get all different types of opinions and narratives on what could work, what should work, what really is the best way to go about this moving forward. I'm open to whatever, honestly. I hope they interview every candidate available. It does bother me a lot seeing Jim Harbaugh interview with the Chargers, interview with the
Hmm.
Falcons yesterday. And I literally will pull my hair out if Harbaugh goes to the NFL and has immediate success while the Bears run it back with lame duck Eberflus. I
Right. Or
really hope,
Belichick, right? I mean, that's
or
got to feel
Belichick.
awkward.
I,
Yeah.
I don't think Belichick with the Bears would be a good fit
No.
personally, but even interviewing him, that's
Right.
that's the problem that I have, and I said that last week. The Bears were very fast in coming back and saying, yeah, we're going to run it back with Matt Eberflus. Like, why not give it some time? Why not talk to all
Yeah.
available heads and actually, talk to Mike Vrabel, talk to proven winners, proven head coaches in this league. But the Bears are going to continue to do it the Bears way. And it's been a while since they've gotten it right.
Right.
So we're gonna see.
Right.
We're gonna see.
I do think Eberflus deserves some respect for his revival of the season. Like I remember the tone at Halloween when it was like what 1-7, just horrific start to the season, and he kind of kept everybody afloat. He got that defense squared up. Fields came back healthy. I saw some good things. So if you ask me straight up, did Eberflus deserve to be fired? I would say probably not. But it's sort of like, should I break up with this girl if I know a better girl might be interested in me? I think that's sort of the issue that the Bears have here. And I will say loyalty does prevail and does mean something, especially when you consider that the Giants might be the only team in the NFC East to remain loyal to their head coach in Brian Daboll. Now, I'm jumping ahead. We don't know what's going to happen with McCarthy and Sirianni. We know Ron Rivera already got fired, but we know that they are in serious trouble of losing their jobs. Daboll is not. Now, here's the thing about New York. Last year, Brian Daboll, you could ask any New Yorker, New Jersey, anyone in the tri-state area. I would give a pinky toe for Brian Daboll. I love that guy. Like, I would take a bullet for him. Like it was unanimous support. And what New York will do is whenever anything's unanimous, like a unanimous support of somebody, they will dig and dig and dig until they can find that dirt on that guy. So we already saw this a little bit with the Paul Schwartz report with the New York Post. We talked about it on previous show, Wink Martindale and all that drama and hostility and all that. It got worse. Now, you guys are not from New York, so you probably don't know this guy, Pat Leonard. He's a writer for the New York Daily News. Got in a huge beef with Leonard Williams one time on the New York Jets for putting words in his mouth and creating false narratives out there. He's the type of guy that maybe he's less of a journalist and more of a pot stirrer, you know? So he obviously got some intel on what had gone on with Wink and Daboll. And apparently it's a little concerning. I wouldn't trust Leonard as far as I could throw him, but that there were some details in that story that were concerning. One of them being that the hostility between Daboll and Wink was so high that Joe Shane had to sit on the headset and kind of make sure everybody's attitude was cool, because apparently Daboll said to Wink during a Washington game that they won, you're going to lose this game just like you lost the Jets game. Just was real attack, like personal attack on Wink. And obviously, Wink is not the only reason the Giants lost the Jets game, but just seeing these types of headlines and this type of dirt, it concerns me. Obviously, the way things ended with Wink concerns me. Like I really do. I don't think Daboll ever wanted Wink back. I think he played politics. He stayed loyal to the company. And I think ultimately when he fired, Wink's colleagues there, the linebacking coaches, the Wilkins brothers, that was ultimately the bait to get Wink to leave on his own. And then it became that for 48 hours, like, is he fired? Is he released? Is he resigned? Whatever. It all became down to money. So I have no idea what's going to happen to the New York Giants in the future. I am very concerned. I put out a little podcast this past week, what I think they should do at 6. And my feeling is best available quarterback. If there isn't somebody named Jaden Daniels there and you're looking at Penix, I don't know if I would take Penix just because of the knee history. I would consider best available wide receiver at that point. Obviously, that's probably going to be Malik Neighbors at that point if you're lucky, because I think we can all agree that Marvin Harrison Jr. is not going to be there at 6. So unless the Giants got something up their sleeves, they have a lot to navigate around, because right now, I read this today, I almost threw up. Daniel Jones and Darren Waller are contributing to 24% of the salary cap next season. Obviously, they're taking on more of Waller's contract this year because they got him from the trade last year with Tony. And I also found out in that article that during the training camp sessions where I this ruined my fantasy season. I was like eating up. I was like, Darren Waller, yeah. He's going to be like, I thought he was going to have the best season possible. Apparently during these highlights of training camp, Dayball had told Wink to not blitz, to give Jones, time and comfort and get used to it. And obviously that is not a good sign. So I don't know what to think of Jones. I don't know if we're going to even have Saquon Barkley back. A lot of question marks. The only thing we do know is, for better or worse, Brian Daboll is the leader and head coach of the New York Giants. And personally, I still believe in him. But we have, like you said, Johnny, we have a whole offseason ahead. We have a lot to go through to see what happens with the New York Giants next season. But yeah, listen, I'm a fan. I see things through the lenses of a Giants fan. So you guys got any hot questions for me? Anything you think will happen in the offseason? Because I look at it and I think the Bears are like, okay, maybe they're not screwing this up. I don't know. Patriots, I say good luck. It's a new head coach. You guys, the Giants right now do not look good in the public eye, do they?
Sorry, you go ahead, Nicky.
Yeah, I'd say, yeah, it doesn't look good in the public eye, but I think that Daboll would be able to scrounge together something and kind of pick that back up and build them back up. One thing that's going into this offseason too that'll be really interesting is obviously going to be the saga around Saquon Barkley, and he's someone who, even especially after all the noise that was made by him, Josh Jacobs, and Austin Eckler, and some other running backs going into this season about how they need to be paid more. And I agree, running backs have kind of been devalued over the past couple of years, but with how this season has played out, and especially with, I think the injury history might play a factor into it too. I don't see Barkley coming back. Not to say that it's not totally off the table that he's going to come back, but I think the chances of him going somewhere else for another opportunity might be a little bit higher this year, because especially with the money the Giants have tied up into Daniel Jones, do the Giants want to risk possibly giving a huge contract to Saquon Barkley, or are they going to franchise tag him and upset him again?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to be something that a lot of fans are going to have their eyes on for the Giants coming into this offseason.
I'm really interested to see what the Giants do at number 6. Are you guys going to stay there? Are you guys going to take an offensive lineman? Are you guys going to actually commit to protecting Daniel Jones, who you paid a lot of money to last season? A lot of people are talking about Justin Fields getting a Daniel Jones type contract if they were to roll with him. I'm very interested to see what the Giants are going to do at number 6. Do you guys, do you see them staying at 6? Do you see them trading down?
I see them staying.
I keep seeing rumors that the Giants, I keep seeing rumors that the Giants, might take a run at Caleb Williams at number 1. Could they give the Bears a certain package? I think the top 8 teams all have to consider moving up to number 1 and what they could potentially give Chicago. Do you see any scenario where they would move on from Daniel Jones?
Sure. There's plenty of scenarios where it could happen. Sorry, I'm trying to answer your question. I think that the Giants will not trade up from 6, but if it means anything, the last time the Giants did an aggressive trade in the first round was for Eli Manning. And that was obviously all the drama with the Chargers and how Eli had voiced that, him and his family didn't really think it was a good idea for him to go there. And then the Chargers decided to take him anyway with the intent of getting Sean Merriman, Nate Kading, and Phillip Rivers. They got more picks out of it. So I don't think it was a bad deal for anybody. I think the Chargers fans that are still butthurt about that are just upset that Eli won and Phillip Rivers didn't. But it's very uncharacteristic for the Giants to trade up aggressively. The last couple of years, with Shane, we've seen it a little bit. Obviously, they traded up to get Jalen Hyatt, but that was not a first rounder. It's very rare for the Giants to move up in the first round. And I don't know if I don't think they're going to go O-line, because you talk about the commitment to doing it. I mean, have they not drafted Evan Neal? Have they not drafted Schmitz last year, early the second round? Have they not extended Andrew Thomas to maximum money? I mean, yes, they absolutely could use a guard, and the offensive line this year was a horrific show, but they were up to their teeth in injuries. And, I think they definitely need to improve depth there, but I'm not going to go as far as to say they have to take a lineman with the 6th overall pick. Jets, I see them going that route 100%, that or wide receiver. I want the Giants to go wide receiver, not because of any opinion I have on who's playing quarterback. Like, I don't know if it's if Daniel Jones ends up being traded to the Atlanta Falcons, there's a rumor out there, maybe he'll go there.
Weapons on your offense.
You never have enough weapons. And when Darius Slayton has led your team in receiving for 3 straight years now, that is not a knock on Slayton at all. They have done whatever they can to replace him. They've signed Kenny Golladay. They've brought in a big tight end target in Darren Waller. They traded up to draft Jalen Hyatt, and none of those guys have even sniffed 1,000 yards. So they need the best thing that helped Eli Manning was Plaxico Burress. So if we do stick with Daniel Jones, I would love for them to get somebody of like that nature. Neighbors is not necessarily a big beast, but he's absolutely a number one and can take over things. And in a dream scenario, I want to do what the Bengals did. I want to get Neighbors, and I want to get I also want to get Jaden Daniels. Just keep that chemistry, which is almost impossible. But
that'd be pretty cool. I appreciated Darius Slayton's tweet of Michael Jackson eating the popcorn at the movie theater, commenting on
he has great tweets. He really does.
Back-to-back collapses. But it must be nice in Cancun, wherever he is watching.
But the golf course.
Yeah, the golf course, right? Yeah.
But anyway, guys, this has been a fun show. I'm going to miss our weekly breakdowns of our favorite teams. Obviously, we're all on the golf course right now. Thankfully, everyone in the NFC East is hanging out there, so I can kick back and enjoy these playoffs. But this has been a lot of fun. Obviously, we're going to kick back and continue to enjoy the games this week. I'm going to put a story out there of the current standings for our picks, and we'll keep the competition going. Hopefully, our man Chris isn't buried with too much snow. Yesterday, he was supposed to be back. The day before that, he was supposed to be back. So I don't know. Maybe Nashville just doesn't know how to handle snow, but at least our man Chris is warm wherever he is. I hope our man Chris is warm wherever he is, and we look forward to having him join us soon. But thanks for tuning in. As always, take care of yourselves. We're going to add be warm. I always end the show with be well, but be warm and be well. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you so much for your support of both Next Man Up and Down the Rabbit Hole Media. If you enjoyed this show and want to hear other shows or want to learn more about our content, please check out all of our links and information on dtrabbithole.com. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Subscribe to us on Spotify. Thank you so much for your support. And if nothing else, just tell a friend. We really appreciate your time. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And as always, be well.